decision.
Right. So everybody I ever talked to said, get your JD past the bar and you should be good to go from there. So I wasn't worried too much about school rankings or stuff like that. Just wanted to go for the place that would put me in the least debt.
Right.
How many people, quick estimate, do you think went to law school as a last resort? Kind of like what you were talking about. Like they end up with, a useless degree and they're like, what
History
can I do?
is not a useless degree. Come on.
It really is.
Okay.
And then they look at like, oh, could I do med school? No, that's a lot of prereqs. Oh, could I be a vet? Same thing. Wait a second.
You just have to be able to write and talk. I can do that.
Right.
I talk all the time. It's hard to get me to shut up. If I can go and get paid to do that, I like it.
That's why lawyers are great.
So, what do you? And you're 1L, so you're relatively new. Have you been able to determine kind of what are the best and worst parts of your experience so far at Mitchell Hamlin?
I mean, I'm only about a month in, so this can change on a moment's notice. But the best so far is I really like my professors this year. So,
okay.
And then. Yeah, I like the professors, and it's really fun to be in a like-minded community where it's everybody here is in the same general mindset that you are. So I'm really enjoying that, meeting a lot of cool people, and definitely enjoying that. The worst part, I think the worst part at this point is that I kind of just left my entire network, everything. I just up and left Fargo, all my friends there. I was lucky that a lot of my friends from undergrad ended up in the city, so I had some friends coming in, but
that's good.
It's still a bit of a... It was the first time I ever moved out of a city and was sad to be doing so. So it was just a bit of a loss there. But
were you born and raised in Fargo?
I was born in Fargo, raised about 45 minutes south of it. So I grew up out in that Lakes Country border area, North Dakota, Minnesota border specifically, but... So I like it out there, but yeah, and then just but leaving that whole area, I don't have any family down here, just a few friends, then kind of going on my own. But I can definitely handle it, but not going to say that it's easy.
And then what do you want to do after law school with your law degree?
Plan right now is to head back to Fargo. It's a great city where you can pick up pretty much anything you need, but you don't ever have to drive more than 20 minutes to get anywhere in the metro area. Right. Easy traffic and it's the culture I grew up in, it's the culture I like. So,
excellent.
What's the clubbing scene like?
I don't club, so no idea.
Are you a big club scene, Hannah?
No, not. I mean, I'll dabble, but I've heard the Fargo club scene is something to behold.
What kind of clubbing are you talking about by dabbling?
Talking more dairy clubs and corn growers associations.
I'm thinking you at a rave or something.
Clubs. Yeah, no, that was my initial thought, but I'm revising now that I realize we're talking about Fargo.
No, I wouldn't be surprised. I've been downtown on Saturday nights for a few times. So they have quite a scene down there, but that's generally not my scene. So,
what is your scene?
Nerdy things.
Speaking of that, so proposing that same question that I proposed to my co-host. Kind of, what's the nerdiest thing that that you're all about?
Oh my God, where to start? Let's see. I love D&D, board games, video games, into all of it. I DM'd a Star Wars role-playing game for a solid 6 months, had one campaign going, and then I've kind of jumped in and out here and there. So, let's see, I podcast about a Star Wars board game, competitive war game.
We'll get to that, yeah.
So I'd say that's the deepest nerd I go to. Is you get three levels deep there. Let's see, read a crap ton of fantasy, sci-fi, science fantasy, if we're making the distinction there. So I like Star Trek, like Star Wars. I'm currently in the middle of reading an alternate Earth history of where the dinosaurs never went extinct. So instead, it's a race of sentient dinosaurs versus a race of sentient lemurs, where a World War II destroyer crew gets sent through to that world and have to try to rapidly industrialize. So just nerd all the way down.
Awesome.
It's called the Destroyermen novels. I highly recommend them.
What is
Destroyermen.
it? Novels? Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Are you still finding time to read?
That's how I get to sleep, so yes.
Okay.
And it's not reading like con law cases or...
I don't have con law this semester. I don't know if that's going to be what puts me to sleep, but...
Oh, it puts me to sleep in 5 seconds, no matter where I am.
No, I got Civ Pro, Crim, and Torts this semester, so all things I am pretty interested in. So.
And who are your professors at Mitchell Hamlin?
I have Professor Coben for Civil Procedure, Professor Radson for Criminal, and Professor Hermer for Torts, and then I also have the Lawyering with Agregard.
Oh, Agregard's pretty awesome.
I like Agregard. I'm a little sad that I'm not in his small group session, so he only does the large group, so I don't get to see him very much.
He actually posted, he made a Star Tribune article at the State Fair. I don't know if you saw that.
I saw that.
He dropped his wallet at the State Fair, and he was really worried about it. And then some Good Samaritan had returned his wallet the next day with all of his money and cash in it. And he said in the article that was him and his redeeming of society, that there are still good people in Minnesota that are returning full wallets to the State Fair.
Minnesota, nice to the core.
Right.
Yeah, that money would have been gone. All right.
I found $20 the other day.
And you tried to find whose it was and return it, right?
Well, there was no, associated. There was no information except that it was tightly rolled into a cylinder shape, and it was on the sidewalk by the bar, and I was out walking the dogs.
How much white powder was on it?
There was actually no white powder, so perhaps it had been destined for a use that it never made. Too.
Out of his junkie pocket.
And now I will spend it on dog food.
Bring it to a good cause.
Yeah.
Carry it to the original owner, you might as well put it to good cause.
But if you would have saw it fall out of the owners, you definitely would have given it back, right?
Oh, for sure.
There you go. And so let's talk a little bit about Star Wars, because you actually have a podcast about Star Wars board games. So how on a scale of 1 to extreme nerd, how much do you love Star Wars? Is it just really...
We're going into a rabbit hole here, sir. That was a lot of what I read when I was growing up, was the Star Wars Expanded Universe novels. I got way more into that than the movies.
Wow.
It was they had it, so everybody here I assume has seen the movies.
Yep.
So they had it charted out to about 45 years after Return of the Jedi, just in completely filled in canon of what happened next, and then after that. It was so that was a lot of my childhood was Star Wars stuff, and then kind of carried on into adulthood. I don't read the novels as much anymore, but I dabble where I can get with my Audible credits once in a while. Okay. But yeah, otherwise it's more of a way to it's a great way to meet people, and the Fantasy Flight games, Star Wars board games are a lot of fun to play. So.
And so, all right, so are you not really into the movies? It's good, but you don't really care about them?
The new movies, they're decent. They're about what you'd expect out of Star Wars movies. But Episode 7 was kind of it was just a shot-for-shot remake. But and then I liked a lot of what they tried to do with 8, but they undercut a lot of their own themes. So I was all right, at the end, I found myself agreeing more with Kylo Ren than with the heroes, quote unquote.
Right.
So I just thought it was it was, but like I said, I really liked what they tried to do. So maybe they keep trying to experiment with 9, or maybe they see all the negative backlash, and then they try to go back and just turn 9 into a shot for shot of 6, which I hope they don't do.
Right. Now, have you been to any Star Wars Comic-Con or convention?
No Star Wars specific convention, unless you count the World Championship for Star Wars board games as a con, which it pretty much is it kind of turns into a con-like atmosphere, but it's just the tournament and games part of the con, instead of there's no vendor booth really, because it's at the company's main store. So it's they serve good food and beer there, so it's just kind of turns into a big old party of everybody playing games.
Wow. See, I like Star Wars, but I have not seen any of the newer Star Wars that came out, and by newer I mean in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just a cynic, but I don't think you're missing much. Rogue One's worth your time.
Yeah,
I loved Rogue One.
Yeah, Rogue One I thought was really good. I thought it was better than any of the new ones that have come out. and maybe any of the ones that have come out since the Star Wars one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I love 3, but I understand it has major flaws. I just like it anyway.
That's okay.
Like with the cinematography and how, kind of going from that older cinematics to, I guess 2003 is when it came out?
99 for 1, 2002 for 2, and 2005 for 3. So it's a little older, yeah. And I was 6 when episode 1 came out, so I liked it. I was 6. What was I supposed to know? So that kind of episode 1 is actually kind of what got me into the whole Star Wars thing.
Okay, see, I love 4 through 6. Those are my favorite ones, and then kind of working my way.
Yeah, they're darn good movies.
Oh yeah, 4 through. I don't think anything's going to beat the 4 through 6. So
right.
You said you hadn't been to any Star Wars specific cons, but that was kind of a qualifier. Does that mean you've been to other cons?
I've been to Gen Con once, which is the biggest board game convention in the world, and then I've also been to. Then I also went to PAX and PAX East. That was back in 2013. Dang, that was a long time ago. But yeah, those are big-time video game and board game conventions.
Nice.
So those were both a lot of fun. So yeah, those are the biggest cons I've been to. And then I went to an anime convention with my friend last year, and that's about it for con going.
Awesome. And so I think we'll plug your Star Wars podcast. You also have a website. People can go to www.twintroopers.com.
Yes, Twin Troopers. If I can't, in full faith, recommend it to people because we get really deep into the gameplay and analysis of that specific board game. So, but it's a great game. Go ask your local game shop about Imperial Assault, and maybe there's a crew near you and it's the nicest some of the nicest game community I've ever met. So they'll definitely be willing to show you the ropes.
Nice.
Excellent. Cool. So let's discuss some nerdy legal topics. So I had kind of wanted to ask you guys a little bit about laws around self-driving cars. I guess self-driving cars in general, do you guys see this as the future? And if so, is it a good idea, bad idea? And then how should our laws govern them?
I was reading some of the articles that you had sent out, and I definitely see it as something that we will be seeing more of in the future. And the thing that really struck me the most was how this artificial intelligence in this car will be trying to judge morality. I was reading some of the articles, they take whatever statistics are in the area, the demographics of the location, and the car makes the judgment. Like if it's in a 100% collision course for something, they could either crash into the wall and kill all the occupants, or they could swerve the wall and hit a family of 3 on the sidewalk. And it's up to the car to decide what would be more morally detrimental or cost efficient to, I guess, collide with. And I was reading they're pointing out how they use neighborhood demographics. So if you're saying in a more richer community, it would be more beneficial to, say, crash your car into the wall than it would be to crash into that family. Whereas if you drive into a more impoverished community, it may be more beneficial to find an alternative way of crashing your car that minimizes the damages to the car itself. So I think that was kind of an interesting play on how we see morality, because of a reasonably prudent person is a standard that has been used for law. And when you use that for artificial intelligence as a statistic, I think you're going to get into some trouble.
Right. Minor quibble, that article is more talking about, do you crash into the expensive car or the not expensive car? It wasn't talking about the rich people or the poor people, at least when I was reading the article. I
was reading another article talking about, they have, cameras that scan, and you can show, there's an infant here, and there's an adult here, and then there's a pregnant woman in the car with her kid. And that's where, it kind of gets into the...
Yeah, and then, trying to program in the prioritization is really tough on that. So.
Exactly.
So isn't the reasonableness then based on those who program the AI?
Yeah, do you just get a bunch of torts lawyers in there to program the AI and say, all right, this is what a reasonable robot would do?
But then you just go down a rabbit hole. I mean, that's why we have all of our jurisprudences, because of all the precedents that's set and what distinctions are made from reasonably prudent people. So I don't think you can have a set standard that would fit the needs of every situation.
Right. You have infinite situations, but only finite processing.
Exactly.
Can't you just put in some kind of self-destruct so that it would
self-destruct sequence.
immediately
But like, what if there's an
instead of-
occupant in the car?
I prefer
though?
not to get blown up. Thank you very much. I mean, you can
I
survive.
mean,